Are you trying to top 4 your next RTN to earn a spot in your national champs? Have you spent hundreds of hours practicing and tuning your CC deck for the local meta, but your LGS scheduled draft? Well, fear no more. The Runaways have you covered this RTN season for all things limited. If you're looking for a place to practice some of the things you see in this video, be sure to check out the Runaways Discord. It's a great place to find other players to practice and level up with together. If you're interested in supporting the community, check out our premium tiers, which offer some additional gameplay videos from the team and interaction at the higher tiers. Check out the link in the description below. The goal of this video is to put you on the way towards drafting a good deck. If you follow these tips, you'll be on your way towards going positive in your drafts. Each pack of heavy hitters will follow a predictable layout. The following information is based off of the Belgian print, paper, but the Japanese packs, plastic, will have a similar distribution of cards. Each pack will contain 11 commons, 1 rare or majestic, and 1 foil common, rare, or majestic. Out of the 11 commons, 5 of them will be single class cards, 3 will be hybrids, and then the last of the 3 will be a mixture of equipment and generics. The class cards will always be in a 2-2-1 split between the 3 classes in the set, and the hybrids will either be 1 of each pairing or a 2-1 split for 2 of the pairings. Doing some math, this means that on average each class will have around 40 playable class commons, 48 playable hybrids, and 36 playable generics in a draft pod, for a total of 124 total playable commons of any particular class. If each player is aiming to draft a deck of at least 30 playable cards, this means that each draft could theoretically support up to 4 drafters of a single class, although that's not necessarily where we want to be. The reason for doing this math is to show that it's not possible to cut out a player from drafting a hero if they really want to. Similarly, it might be difficult to know if we are drafting the right hero because we can always find playables if we're looking for them. How can we tell that we aren't drafting the same hero as all the other people around us? Heavy Hitters is unique in the sets that came prior because many of the cards, while playable in multiple heroes, do not perform equally well. Specific heroes will value certain cards over others due to the synergy that they have with their hero power. For instance, Agile Windup Yellow is playable in both KO and Olympia, but it is significantly more powerful in KO because of the synergies with Might Tokens and Mandible Claws. If you see one in a pack pass to you, you can start to rule out that the person passing into you is a KO, but not necessarily that they're Olympia. Here are some examples to consider. Olympia gains significantly more value from attack reactions when combined with Wager than Kasai does, because winning a Wager with Olympia will create an additional gold. On the other hand, Kasai gets much more benefit from cards that draw, because they also discount her weapons. Victor wants to draft in a style that enables him to win clashes with cards like Test of Strength, as he stands to gain the most from getting gold. On the other hand, cards like Bigger Than Big, while playable and decent in Victor, will increase the density of non-attacks in his deck and cause you to lose more clashes on average. Betsy, on the other hand, can utilize the Wager component on these cards to push through huge overpower attacks that have a high chance of then winning. KO benefits from drafting many of the blue 5-power attacks since they'll act as 6-power attacks when discarded. Many of these 5-power attacks block for 2 and are therefore unappealing for Rhinar to draft anyways. However, Rhinar does very well when he can set up a big turn coupled with Intimidate to push through damage, so reliable ways to discard 6s such as playing Bonebreaker Bellow can present a very powerful turn alongside Swinging Claws twice, as well as potentially playing another card with Beat Chest as a follow-up. Warriors tend to get more value out of agility and vigor than their counterparts because the warrior weapons are the most resource and damage efficient attacks in the set. On the other hand, both Brute and Guardian will often draft more high-powered attacks and clash cards that will generate a lot more for these two classes than Warrior, since they'll win clashes at a higher rate. With this in mind, rather than looking purely for cards that can go in our deck, we should be focusing on cards that enable powerful turns through synergy as the signals for heroes and classes that are open in our seat. Now Yuanji will walk us through what some of these decks actually look like.
Alright, thanks Ethan. So what we're about to do is pretty cool. We have 3 decks that we're going to look at, one for each class, and these decks have been submitted by our community who are really good. A lot of the times when people win their drafts, they post the decks that they won with so that people can learn from them. So we're going to look at how these decks are built on a couple of different axes. And so the first thing that I wanted to look at is sorting by pitch. So we see that actually most of the decks that do well are kind of built the same way with regards to pitch. So this KO deck has 11 reds, 13 yellows, and 13 blues. 13 blues is a bit high, actually, but I think that he was only playing 12 in his main deck. And then we can do the same thing when we look at this Kasai deck. When we sort it by pitch, you know, we have 12 reds, 7 yellows, 15 blues. I believe that he ended up only playing 14 of them in his main deck. And we have also a Victor deck. And this is, I think, pretty interesting for people to look at. So a Guardian deck, drafting 14 reds, 9 yellows. He drafted 14 blues, but only ended up playing 12 of them in his deck. I mean, you get that trend pretty much across the board, where most of the time what you want to be doing is having, roughly equal splits of red, yellow, and blue. And obviously you don't necessarily want a lot of yellows unless you're, Victor, and you can block yellows onto Golden Glare, but at the same time, the yellows aren't necessarily that detrimental, especially if they block 3, or in the case for Guardian, it's really good to get some yellows that have high power so that you can win some clashes. And then the other thing that I want to take a look at is how many class cards that they have. And so let's take a look at this Victor deck. So we see that he's drafted 24 Guardian cards, and 4 of them are equipment. So you have 20 Guardian cards. That's only Guardian, like single class cards in the Victor deck that went 3-0. And let's take a look at the Olympia deck. So the Olympia deck drafted, 26 warrior cards, and 5 of them are equipment. So we have 21 cards in the deck that are solo warrior cards. And then if we look at the KO deck, same thing. 26 brood cards, 2 of which are equipment. So, 24 solo class cards. And that's why what we were talking about when it comes to signaling, it's so important to just get the volume of single class cards. These cards are designed to be played with the heroes of the class that they represent, and they have the highest synergy with the heroes' powers. And you'll find that when you are drafting towards playing for these synergy plays, your turns are just going to be more powerful on average. And then the other thing that it kind of stands out among all of these 3-0 decks is we can take a look, and they all have pretty good equipment. So, the KO deck has 3 pieces of equipment, obviously has the rare hat. All of the decks that we're going to be looking at, they all got the rare hat for their respective hero. So we have, for Olympia, we have Parry Blade, which is also kind of like a block equipment in a pinch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of equipment with, the rare hat for Olympia. And then for Victor, we also have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of equipment that were drafted, with the Miller's Grindstone being, a really powerful weapon as well, and also having the rare specialization hat for Victor. Now, you don't need to draft the rare specialization to 3-0. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is that finding opportunities within the draft to be picking up a lot of cards in your class while also, snagging really good equipment is pretty crucial to increasing your win rate. Just having not you don't need a full set of equipment, but having 3 pieces of equipment is pretty big in generating a life buffer and being able to either make tokens so that you can have a power turn, or blocking so that you can keep some extra cards in your hand so you can have a power turn. A lot of the times when your opponent is attacking you with a wager, you're going to want to have armor to help you block those wager attacks as well. And so if you kind of follow these guidelines, then you're going to know what you want to kind of be expecting. You really want to be trying to draft around 20 single class cards in your deck, and that means that ideally, you're one of two people who are drafting these in the class. And if you're one of 3, then that's okay too, as long as you're prioritizing these single class cards and you end up with more of them than the other people in your pod who are drafting the same class, then I think you're going to end up coming out ahead. I think that knowing that you don't need to be drafting half your deck is blues when you're drafting Guardian, knowing that it's also beneficial, I think, to have a couple more blues when you're drafting like the other decks as well, like if you're drafting Olympia, you know, having some extra blues. If you're drafting KO, even having like one of KO's like strongest points is that a lot of your blue 5-power attacks still count as 6s for your draw discards. Having extra blues is just going to mean that your turns are going to, on average, have a blue, and that's really important so that you don't end up playing inefficiently for the turn. You know, most turns you want to be spending 2 to 3 resources, and so having some yellows, having a lot of blues in your deck is just going to increase the consistency of your deck, and that's really important. I hope this was helpful, and we're going to pass it back to Ethan for a recap.
To summarize all the information in the video, we want to be drafting decks that incorporate synergy with the hero that we'll end up choosing. This is primarily through single class cards, so be on the lookout for those cards to help you decide which hero or class to draft for your seat. Make sure that you also look for opportunities to pick equipment if possible. If you keep these things in mind during your RTN drafts, you'll definitely have a leg up over the competition. If you found this video useful, then leave a like and a comment. Thank you for the time, and good luck to everyone who is participating in RTN season. Stay healthy and keep gaming. Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope
What we could do
in
here is go
darkness.
ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope in Darkness.